I never thought the darkness could be louder than the artillery. It was 0200 on the night of the 12th, our quiet shift on the perimeter of FOB Marigold, a tin-capped mess of shipping containers and barbed wire that had been a staging area for the last 2 weeks. The air smelled of diesel and burnt rubber, the only light coming from the floodlights that threw long shadows across the sandbags. I was on the left watch, half asleep, the weight of my M4 buckling against my chest like a reminder that any split second could snap you into a firefight. We had just finished a 3-day field exercise, clearing a village, in a simulation that left every soldier with a fresh taste of mud, shrapnel, and the acrid smell of burned flesh. The teachers called it stress inoculation, but the fact we were still counting the number of missing fingers on 2 LT Ramirez told me the inoculation was a joke. The night shift is supposed to be simple. Check the perimeter every 10 minutes, listen for anything out of the ordinary, keep your head down. Easy enough when the world is only the humming of generators and the occasional dog bark from the local village. At 0206, the radio crackled. All units, negative contact. Keep eyes up. A voice from the command post, distant and flat, like a man reading a weather report. I glanced at my watch. 5 minutes to the next patrol. Nothing. Then, the sound of a rifle bolt cycling, soft, metal on metal, dragged across the sand. I turned my head toward the far end of the fence, where the floodlights flickered like dying fireflies. Nothing. My mind, trained for hypervigilance, cataloged the noise as a displaced footstep, a wind-moved tarp. I pulled the strap of my tactical flashlight down and snapped the light on, the beam cutting a thin, white line through the black. For a fraction of a second I saw it. A shape, no taller than a child, crouched behind a stack of pallets. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stared at me with eyes that were too wide, too still. My heart hammered. The adrenaline that made my ears pop was gone, replaced by a cold that seeped into my bones. I raised my weapon reflexively. "Identify yourself!" I barked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. The shape didn't answer. The flashlight flickered, sputtering like a dying insect. When the beam steadied, the figure was gone. The pallets remained, unmoved, as if they'd never held anything at all. I radioed in, my voice barely a whisper. "Control, this is Alpha 3. I have a visual. Something's out there. No, I'm not sure what." "Copy that, Alpha 3. Stay on the line. We're sending a team." The reply crackled, the static swallowing the words. I could feel the weight of every soldier I'd ever trained with, every friend lost in the dust of a mortar strike, pressing down on my chest. The minutes stretched. Every rustle of sand became a whisper of a threat. The night shifted, and with it, the temperature dropped. My breath condensed in front of me, each exhale a puff of white that vanished as quickly as any reassurance. At 0223, the patrol came. 4 men in full combat gear, their faces blank, their boots thudding on the sand. They swept the perimeter with night vision goggles, their heads turning in mechanical unison. "Nothing," one of them said, eyes still glued to the green hue of the lenses. "Probably a stray animal." My mind was already trying to convince me that it was a rat that had gotten into the mess hall and decided to explore the fence line. When they left, the darkness settled again, heavy and indifferent. I tried to convince myself the fear was just the residue of combat, the leftover echo of explosions that never quite stop ringing in your ears. Yet the night seemed to breathe, to inhale and exhale with a rhythm I could feel in my own chest. I stayed up until sunrise, the sun's first light painting the sand in a sickly orange, and the base smelled of fresh coffee and chlorine. I never saw the shape again, never heard that metallic click. The radio logs showed no contact, no enemy activity, no animal sightings. My squad mates laughed it off later, saying I'd been spooked by the wind. But when I walk past the pallets now, I still hear that faint click in the back of my mind, a reminder that some shadows don't need a source to exist. And somewhere, deep in the sand, something that isn't quite human is waiting for the next night guard to lower his guard and listen. We never got a report. We never filed a casualty. The only thing left is the question that never gets an answer. What was out there? And why did it stare? Story 2. The mud here never dries. It just gets warmer. My third rotation on the wire, and the perimeter lights throw long, sickly shadows that don't move right. They stretch and shrink like they're breathing. The static from my radio headset is a constant hiss, a familiar friend. Until it isn't. It was the coughing that got me. A wet, ragged sound from the tree line 50 meters past the concertina wire. Not an animal cough. Too human. Too small. Reaper 6, this is Dog 1. Activity east, grid correlating to Old Orchard. Over. My voice was flat, the way they trained us. No excitement. Dispatch crackled back, all professional calm. Dog 1, acknowledge. No heat signatures. No movement on feed. Stand by. I stared at the green-tinged screen. Nothing. Just the ghostly outlines of sandbags and the fence. But I heard it again. A whimper this time. A child's sound. My knuckles went white on the rifle. The rules of engagement are clear about unknowns. But the training doesn't cover this. It doesn't cover a sound that bypasses your ears and settles in your teeth. I swept the laser designator. The red dot jumped over black bark, empty dirt. Nothing. The whimper came again, closer. From the direction of the sound, I should have seen something. A shadow, a shape. But the night just swallowed it. Then I saw her. Or it. A shape detached from the base of a dead oak. Small. Hunched. It moved with a terrible stiff-legged gait, like a marionette with one broken string. It stopped at the wire, 20 meters away. I couldn't see features, just the suggestion of a too large head, 2 thin limbs wrapped in rags. It just stood there, not threatening, not doing anything, just waiting. Dog 1, report. Dispatch again. Visual on a person. Unidentified. Civilian, maybe. At the wire. My throat was sand. Hold position. Do not engage. QRF is 5 minutes. The thing didn't look at my spotlight. It just cocked its head, a bird-like jerky motion. And then it began to laugh. It was the sound I'd heard in the static, the whimper, now twisted into a high, hollow thing that didn't match the small body. It was the sound of a broken phonograph playing a nursery rhyme at the wrong speed. The hairs on my neck didn't stand up. They flattened. A primal cold seeped in, deeper than the night air. This wasn't a threat. This was an absence wearing a child's shape. It raised one spindly arm and pointed a finger directly at me. Not a gesture of accusation. More like marking. Then it was gone. Not running. Just not there anymore. The space where it stood was empty. The mud undisturbed. The QRF arrived. They swept the orchard with NVGs and thermal. Found nothing. No tracks, no heat, no sign of anything. The lieutenant called it a trick of the light, stress, auditory pareidolia. He clapped my shoulder. Long night, kid. Get some rack time. I'm writing this in my bunk. The base is quiet. Somewhere, a generator hums. But in the silence between beats, I can still hear it. Not the laugh. The silence it left behind. It's a shape of quiet, a hole in the noise of the world. And I know, with a certainty that chills my marrow more than any night in this godforsaken mud, that it's not out there anymore. It's in here. It took something when it left. A piece of the dark. And now the dark is in the walls. Listening.